Thank you, Harry, for that rendition of Sketchbook with your band. Always appreciate it. And welcome to the Hugs Not Drugs podcast. This is John Barleycorn. I'm here with, of course, Hugs Not Drugs, and who has the same voice as me. Say hello, Hugs Not Drugs. Hello, Hugs Not Drugs. Ha ha ha. He's pretty funny today. He's got jokes today. So let's be on our toes for him today. And of course, we have the ever-present Dr. Uggs, the alter ego or the antithesis of spirituality. Say something, Dr. Uggs.
Welcome to the show. It's going to be, I'm trying to get these guys to use again Barleycorn. He may be easier than Hugs Not Drugs. Hugs Not Drugs is a little tougher because he's so spiritual. Oh, goodness.
All right. What is the Hugs Not Drugs podcast? So it's basically, it is a show for you guys in recovery that are motivated and want to improve your recovery effort. And so by listening to the show, hopefully you'll be inspired. Hopefully it will entertain you. And hopefully it will provide some education. I have some education today. I became an alcohol and drug counselor, Barleycorn here. I became an alcohol and drug counselor over 40 years ago. It's probably close to 42 years ago. Got in the field in 1983. And most of my colleagues at that point were not college educated. We had experience in staying in recovery, but we didn't have theory. And theory came along as very, very important. As a counselor, you need both. You need theory and you need experience. And a lot of recovering people in rehabs, when rehabs got hot in the 80s, became an industry, they hired a lot of people like me that have been in recovery for a while, knew about 12-step philosophy, and was willing to help a sick and suffering alcoholic as a means not only for a livelihood, but also for the ability to stay sober ourselves and get out of ourselves. That's the 12th step. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. And there was a lot of cocaine out there in the 80s, and a lot of people were becoming cocaine addicts. That was more the vogue drug at that time. In the 70s, I did a lot of hallucinogens, and that got me to my knees and had me surrender in 1979. But like I said, 4 years later, I was recruited to work in the field. And a lot of my colleagues left the field 4 or 5 years into it because the field was changing and improving with theory. We had a lot of great theorists at that time. ACOA was coming into its own as a philosophy, and there were many great writers of addiction, explaining addiction, and they were I'm going to use a lot of that today. I went back and got my education when I was in my 40s, and then had a child when I was 42, got married in 87, and 5 years later we had our first child. 2 more years later we had our second child. And so I got a late start, late bloomer, early fader for me. And so I was still very, very hungry for the theory. And so I went back to school, and this is something that I had written, been working on, the book that's coming out, or is out now, The Transformation of Dr. Uggs. I started writing this in 92 for my thesis. So I'd just like to read from that today for our show.
Oh, this is going to be the most boring thing in the world.
I don't think so. So let's see what we can do. Hugs Not Drugs here. I think it's going to be fascinating.
Oh my God, just shoot me, please.
All right, Barleycorn here. The problem of chemical dependency. Alcoholism and drug addiction are serious health concerns worldwide. Chemical dependency affects the alcoholic or drug addict physically, emotionally, spiritually, socially, and sexually. Moreover, chemical dependency also affects family and friends to a greater or lesser degree in the same areas. Effective treatment begins with detoxification. Subsequent steps include learning or relearning to trust and talk, identifying feelings in constructive ways, replacing the void of not using substances that alter moods with positive behaviors and attitudes, and networking with 12-step support systems. Because this is a malady that breeds from poor communication and mistrust, the more chronic one becomes, the more isolated one will progress to be. Being able to establish rapport with the chemically dependent client is a vital skill for the alcohol and drug counselor. AA members are storytellers, and being able to share one story at 12-step meetings, such as Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Chemical Dependence Anonymous, at a speakers meeting, has been one of the solutions to the problem of chemical dependency for millions of AA members. Disease or not disease? Is alcoholism and drug addiction a disease? Why is it? Why is it not? How does one stop this affliction? Where do we as individuals and a society need to be going with this situation? These are the questions that different theorists attempt to answer in their books, articles, and lectures. I surmise that there are two camps of theorists, the disease concept theorist and the non-disease concept theorist. The disease concept camp has been building since the origin of Alcoholics Anonymous in 1935. Early disease concept theorists won over the medical and mental health profession with their ideas that alcoholism is a chronic, downwardly progressive in consequences and terminal in its conclusions if total abstinence does not occur. Such theorists include William Silkworth, who informed the co-founders of Alcoholics Anonymous, Bill Wilson, who had the disease of alcoholism. Bill Wilson was a tremendous founder for Alcoholics Anonymous, along with Dr. Bob Smith. Dr. Harry Tebow was a psychiatrist who introduced Marty Mann, one of the first women who remained sober in AA, to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Then there's Elvin Jelnick, whose Yale studies resulted in a book entitled The Disease Concept of Alcoholism. He writes, AA has no official definition of alcoholism, but the concept of Dr. William Silkworth, one of AA's friends, is sometimes cited by AA members an obsession of the mind and an allergy to the body. The obsession or compulsion guarantees that the sufferer will drink against his own will and interest. The allergy guarantees that the sufferer will either die or go insane. As an operative definition in use in AA is that the alcoholic is a person who cannot predict the accuracy what will happen when he takes a drink. Clearly, the fact that AA can be found in over now 100,000 groups, in 90s it was 73,000 groups throughout the world, as a free advocacy to assist anyone who had a desire to stop drinking, keeps the disease concept growing. The non-disease theorists, they maintain that alcohol and drug addiction is not a disease. Fictitiously, I can hear a statement from a non-disease theorist to be, addiction is something that can be outgrown. Breakdown of family systems and social injustices produce this problem. It is more a moral weakness. Behavior modification or a higher level of social consciousness is the answer. To label and endorse the idea that addicts and alcoholics are predisposed genetic multi-generational accidents is wrong. Now, I don't describe with the non-disease theorists, but I think that's a pretty good definition of what they think. For the record, if a civil war breaks out between these camps, I'm one of the disease concept theorists side. As a alcohol and drug counselor for, well, now it's 42 years, but then it was 8 years, with a personal investment in over 12 years of abstaining from destructive, altering substances. Now it's 46 years. I have witnessed and I haven't changed my mind about this. I have witnessed and experienced countless positive life changes in people who believe that chemical dependency is a disease that is best treated in a 12-step fellowship like AA. The disease concept theory versus the non-disease concept theory. Stanton Peele is one of the most outspoken non-disease concept theorists. I think Stanton Peele is still alive. Dr. Peele categorizes excessive use of nicotine, caffeine, overworking, gambling, overeating, sex, love, cocaine, opiates, marijuana, and hallucinogens as addictions. However, he insists that addiction is not a disease, and if an addiction person would follow the strategies called life process program, their addiction would be cured and moderate use would be possible. His program tells addicts, fear not, your insight by quitting, assessing values, assessing resources, goal development, and changing plans in a positive fashion will change behavior. And if you do not have these life skills, then you should obtain them. This life process approach seems somewhat nearsighted in that it views the addict from only a behavioral perspective and not a multifaceted perspective. Peele does not give any conclusive longitudinal statistic support for his approach, where AA now has 90 years of longitudinal evidence that Alcoholics Anonymous Fellowship can change lives for the better for many chronic cases with a desire to stop drinking. Although I am skeptical that there is only one true effective recovery system for addicts, 12-step programs, certainly there is validity to have other effective treatments. Now, I wrote this in 92. Now we have smart recovery. People go to therapists. There's many, many ways for people not to drink besides 12-step philosophy. I just think that it's still the most effective for the most amount of people. Peele's critique of 12-step programs, and he informs the reader that 12-step programs are dogmatic in their approach. They shame the person and make one believe in God in order to be successful. This is certainly not what I believe 12-step programs are ideally about. 12-step programs have suggestions to follow, and there are no must in these programs. Our book is meant to be suggestive only. As a clinician, it scares me to think of an addict believing he or she can use addictive substances safely, again, in moderation, which is what Peele advocates as a possibility for those suffering from addiction. I have not seen anyone successfully use in moderation, and I've been doing this for 42 years. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, you are wrong. We ought to try it. I'm telling you, we'll be okay.
Holy smokes. No, this is Hugs Not Drugs here. Oh, my goodness, you scared the hell out of me. No, I've never seen anyone use safely. I've seen a lot of people say that they're going to use safely, but I don't see that really happening. There's really only a few doors that we can go through. Jails, institutions, death, or recovery. I've not seen anyone successfully use in moderation for an extended period of time. Barleycorn, go back to reading. Okay. My clinical experience correlates with Claudia Black and Terry Gorski and John Wallace. and others who remind us that relapse is a state of mind first, followed by a physical relapse. I mentioned this in the book, The Road to Wellness Workbook, which I wrote as a culmination of my studies of alcoholism through the years. They also discuss safe periods of use, but not very long periods of time. My practical experience has also shown that when an addict relapses, he or she tends to regress to the point of his or her previous stage of addiction. Just seems to get worse, never better. In keeping with controversy, Thomas Saz believes that mental illness is not a disease, and that the mental health profession and society use mental illness as a strategy, justification, and legal fiction to describe the word insanity. He insists that mental illness is a metaphor for the word disease. He explains a disease the way a pathologist describes a disease. For example, one with a physical ailment such as diabetes, brain cancer, or hypertension. According to Saz, only a pathologist can categorize what is and isn't a disease, and mental illness is defined as a disease by this group. Perhaps the most prominent critic in the medical model is the American psychiatrist Thomas Saz. In his book entitled The Myth of Mental Illness in 1961, Saz claims that most of what the medical model calls mental illness are not illnesses at all, but rather problems in living manifested in deviations from moral, legal, and social norms. Saz and Peel both attempted to discredit the neuroscientific theory of distorted brain chemistry, which is supported by most of the disease concept theorists in the medical profession. So I wrote this a long time ago, but there are still those two camps, disease versus non-disease. And it's just a very interesting thing. But these were the granddaddies of the theorists, Saz and Peel, around this is not a disease. Although no conclusive proof has been established for either group, the Diagnostic Statistical Manual categorizes the disease concept therapists are pursuing this research and treating their patients as if this theory were fact. And I think we're all better for that when we use medical models to arrest the concept of disease, the concept of addiction, rather. Is it a disease or is it not a disease? It's still out there as we just don't know the truth. But I do know the medical model works much better than the disease concept model works. Although ongoing research in neurological transmitters cited in the annual Psychiatric Congress provides evidence of chemical imbalance to substance abuse. And probably one of the greater people in this situation is a fellow called Dr. Amen, and he's done over 300,000 MRIs of the brain, and he's been studying this, and he just implores us all to take care of our brains, to be nice to our brains, to treat it well, because that is our powerhouse of how we're going to think and how we're going to process information. A leading disease concept theorist who is also the co-founder of Adult Children of Alcoholics movement, Claudia Black, followed Saz's societal argument but comes to a different conclusion. She estimates that at least 95% of our society suffers on one level or another from codependency. What does the word codependency mean? The word also has many connotations. Briefly, some definitions are neurotics, people pleasers, compulsive, obsessive, controllers of others.
Here's a joke for you about codependencies. How do you know if you're codependent? You know when you're codependent when you have a near-death experience and the life that passes before you, your eyes, is someone else's.
All right, let's get back to the readings here. The label of codependency is a label inclusive of our society. Therefore, if individuals and society recover from their codependency, then society will improve or be in recovery. Claudia Black's comprehensive book, Double Duty, in 1990, she cites well-documented case studies of former dysfunctional, now recovering individuals. Double Duty is a textbook that helps adult children who have also experience one of the following: food addiction, physical disability, sexual abuse, only child syndrome, chemical dependency, a person of color, physical abuse, gay, lesbian, or a child or two of chemically dependent persons. Their stories are ones of bravery, determination, and hope. Through the ability of practice, trusting, talking, feeling, thinking, and asking questions, their lives have been given empowerment and healthy recovery patterns upon which to build. Black also has an interesting twist on Zaz's disease philosophy. She writes, clearly, alcohol and other drugs are poisons to the body. Although not everyone who drinks experiences delirious effects, 8 to 12% of our adult population becomes dependent psychologically and often physically. So that 8 to 12%, for your careful consideration, affects the other 90% or 88% of society. So we live in an addictive society. That's Claudia Black's summation of this, and I tend to agree with her. We live in an addictive society. How we treat that addiction is up to us, and her best practice is to trust people that are trustworthy, talk to people that are trustworthy and healthy, identify your feelings, identify your thinking, and ask questions about things to help give you empowerment. While Claudia Black minimizes the physical addiction, she does address the psychological addiction, where Saz thinks it's a metaphorical and nonsense. I could go on with this, and I'm going to stop here. I think we've covered, is it a disease or not a disease? Let's just conclude the debate, and we'll get to a commercial. Well, let's do the commercial now. Dr. Uggs, will you do the commercial?
Yeah, the Hugs Not Drugs podcast is brought to you by John Forlenza-Bailey, a real prince. He's the author of The Transformation of Dr. Uggs. You can get that. I star in that.
No, Hugs Not Drugs here. No, you don't star in that. You're the nemesis of that. That's not being the star. That's being the antagonist. I am the protagonist. Hugs, not drugs. That's the transformation of Dr. Uggs, becoming Hugs, not drugs.
All right, get the book. It's good. And it's got great illustrations by Joe the Artist. Also, Joe the Artist did the illustrations for the Road to Wellness workbook, which is, it's an adjunct to treatment. I mean, basically, it is treatment. Yeah, John Forlenza-Bailey started writing this about 35 years into his profession, and decided to just give you treatment at a minimal cost. You do need a mentor to do it if you're a substance abuser. So find a substance abuse counselor or a friend that will help you, guide you through the exercises in the workbook, so that you can have more insightful information of how to stay away from the first use again. Remember, we think it's a disease.
Thank you, Dr. Uggs. Okay, thank you for that commercial. And this is John Barleycorn. This is the conclusion to the disease debate. There appear to be two camps while describing alcoholism and other chemical dependency problems, the disease concept and the non-disease concept. Since the origin of AA in 1935, the disease concept therapists have been gaining favor and are a more accepted approach to treat this malady by health professionals. I just want to mention, when I started working in the field in the 80s, only 1 or 2% were in recovery from this illness, which is a travesty. But as treatment has progressed in the last 40-some years, we've got 11% of people can claim to be in recovery from addiction. So we're moving in the right direction. It's been slow progress, but it's been steady progress. And anybody that wants to get well can get well. There is many resources to do that. Hugs Not Drugs podcast is one of them. There's many podcasts. I think there's 500 podcasts now that address addiction in some way, shape, or form. That's my understanding anyway. Don't hold me to it.
Yeah, don't hold him to anything, Barleycorn. Wow.
Overall, each camp, the disease concept and the non-disease camp, provides sound evidence for their claims. It is similar to the debate of the existence of God. It makes common sense to me to be among the believers in God and the disease concept theorists. For just as I cannot show final evidence that addiction is a disease and that God exists, I can live as if they do and possibly gain a full, healthier life than if I didn't believe that. The cause and effect advantage is clear for me. Having made this point, it follows that as most diseases can be cured, so also can help to cure addiction by our ability to remain abstinent. There are already many techniques available, as we mentioned before, but no one seems to have a particular potential that is suggested by the fact that there are many recovering addicts find it helpful to tell their stories over and over again. And that's what we do in the Hugs Not Drugs podcast. You'll hear very inspirational stories from us. You'll hear that from other podcasts that for people in recovery. You'll hear that if you go to self-help groups. I've been doing that for 46 years. Recovering people are the bomb. They're my everything. And I'm just really blessed to have had this life instead of the one full of addiction. So to explore how stories might aid the recovery process, our next podcast is going to be telling about the concepts of storytelling, why this is most effective. So I hope to see you soon on that. Remember, every Monday we have a new podcast, and we'll be having storytellers coming back to you after next week's podcast on storytelling. So I hope everybody has a great day and enjoy the moment. And I encourage everyone to understand that 12-step philosophy, it's just like one strawberry said to the other.
Oh my God, you're not going to say that corny joke again.
You say it. Why don't you say it, Barleycorn here? Why don't you say it, Doctor?
Okay, here's the joke. It's like one strawberry said to the other. If we weren't in that bed together, we wouldn't be in this jam today. Oh my God, the cornball stuff that comes out of this show.
Have a nice day, everybody. Love and peace. Barleycorn here for Hugs Not Drugs podcast. Take care. Take us out, Harry. Love y'all.